What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to StockWatch, episode 11 of Survivor with me. Who else? Who else could it be? It's Will. Will, wave that arm. How you doing, bud?
I'm tired, man. I got one more week left of exams, then I'll be done.
How have you been doing? Have you had any exams yet?
So I had none today, but I had the last 2 weeks filled with fun exams. Tomorrow is Spanish, writing and reading, and then after that is biology. For 2 days, then I'm done.
Wow.
So what about you, Jack, my boy? I know you had exams.
I am all done. I finished my last exams last Wednesday. I had two. The first one I had was at 10:05, and it was the easiest exam I've ever taken in my life.
Glad to hear.
Literally the easiest. And then the next one I took at 1:05 was the hardest exam I've ever taken in my life. One was a history of theater class, and one was a finance class based on accounting. You can probably tell which one might be the harder one.
Yeah, history of theater sounds pretty rough, not gonna lie.
Yeah, pretty bad. Not gonna lie. It was pretty rough. Anywho, we're here to talk Survivor. We're here to talk the stocks. But before we do, we always like to do a little recap of the episodes. Just talk about some general kind of things that we've been seeing. Correct me if I'm wrong, Will, but I'm pretty sure Survivor got nominated for 2 Critics' Choice TV Awards as of recent.
Yeah. I think it was one like the best cast for reality TV. I know Jamie was on Twitter tweeting about it.
Yeah.
We'll follow good old Jamie. I don't have her followed on Twitter. This is embarrassing.
That is embarrassing.
And then I think the other one is just like best reality TV show or best like unscripted something or the other.
Yeah, you got it right. The awards, that particular award has only been around for like a few years. I think it's only been around for like 5 or 6 years or something like that. But it is nice to see Survivor be nominated for awards. It's weird to say that because it's a show that's on a main network that's been on the air since 2000.
Yeah.
It's been on for 20. Now it's almost 23 years. 23. It just turned 23 about like a week ago or a week and a half ago. So it's weird, to say that, wow, this show got nominated for an award, because if the show's been around that long, obviously it's got to be good. But it's the comparison for me that, Survivor got nominated and got awarded so many Emmys back in the day. Like it was the Emmy reality TV show, best host, best cast sometimes, like things like that. It was the show. It was the reality TV show for the Emmys. And so, when that started waning off, when newer shows kind of came into the limelight, people would say, oh, because of that, Survivor fell off. No.
Still around.
No. We got some awards.
Again, people talk bad about not Modern Era, Season 40, Dawn of a New Era, but like, I don't want to just base it off of one award, but the fact that Survivor is still being nominated and still talked about 23 years later, despite the flaws, despite some of the bad seasons, despite everyone saying that Survivor is now unwatchable, it's still it's still as impressive as it was way back when. I think that it stands the test of time, right? I will say I'm a little sad that Big Brother wasn't on Best Competition Series, given
that is what I was going to bring up next.
Of a season, the last season was in particular. Say what you want about hating like Daniel from BB24, but like the cast was super compelling. But that's Big Brother, and this is Survivor. I know Randy doesn't like Big Brother, and when we talk about Big Brother,
we are a Survivor podcast.
We are Survivor.
Yeah, no. I mean, it's weird to not see Big Brother nominated, even though Big Brother, at least the U.S. version, has been around.
Yeah,
almost the same amount of time as Survivor. It's just Survivor's always been in that limelight, and that's why we love it so much. Speaking of Survivor,
yes, sir.
My belief is that this was the best episode of the season. That's my opinion. You might disagree with me, but let me explain. Let me explain. The challenge we got, Last Gasp, always a great challenge. I think that's, driving it down our throats and having it every season. No, but having it come back as a challenge in every other or every few seasons is great because that challenge is fantastic. So that's a high mark. Tribal Council, Carolyn's antics, Danny and Carolyn's little quarrel, Carolyn getting mad at Jeff, a lot of Carolyn, really just another great tribal. And I mean, those are always the two big moments, the two big bam factors of the episode. It's Tribal Council and the challenge. And when those are good, and then you have everything else being really good on top of that, it makes for a great episode. You have lots of interconnected conversations. You got some personal moments, like towards the beginning of the episode. Like, overall, I just thought it was really good.
Do I think it's the best episode because it's that good of an episode and over the top great? Not really. I might say it's the best episode just because it's just a strong episode. And I think it's less of the fact that this episode in particular was over the top and had a lot of high highs. I just think that the last few episodes have been doing a really good job of just being Survivor. And now we're kind of getting the fruits of that. And we're kind of getting the rewards of Survivor being a good show. Because honestly, if I think back, the only episode that I think I didn't like was the Matt boot. But even then, there were still a lot of positives to talk about the Matt boot. It just kind of got ruined by one bad twist.
Right.
And so, like, again, we talk about how every episode has been the best episode of the season so far. I feel like we said the same thing about the Kane boot, the Franny boot, and now
in my opinion, it keeps getting better. In my opinion, it's been on an upward trajectory. And I think you're right. I think based on the strong foundation 44 has laid, we've been bearing the fruits. And these last two episodes, I'm sure, are going to be just as good, if not better.
I'll say the whole merge. The whole merge has been great. In pre-merge, this has been a great season of Survivor. Why are Facebook dads still complaining?
Has it been the best of the new era for you?
It's too early to say because I have recency bias. I will say yes.
Okay.
I will say season 42 is still high up there. 43 is also high up there. And I like 41, but I recognize that it's not that good of a season. It's just it's one of my hot takes of it's like people liking Edge of Extinction, or Caramoan. Everyone has that one season that isn't that good, but they just like it.
They like it, yeah. Yeah, I gotta say that if these last two episodes finish strong and we have a great winner, this is going to be the best new era season for me, and it's really, really close with 42 right now. I think just the complexity of the characters, the moments, all of it kind of bruised together well, and I think that we're just getting back to that formula of classic Survivor. And that's what I think everybody wants. I think some casuals want that. All the super fans want that. Like, we're really getting to the grit of it without getting to only back to basics. That's the thing, right? Every super fan at least wants this back to basics season where it's no idols, no advantages, it's tribes, no swaps, and a merge. I think that's overboard, personally. And I think that's overboard, especially now, because what Survivor's been doing is kind of toning down all their big stuff from like 41 and a little bit of 42 and reeling it back to where now we have a little bit of an easier game in 44. It's not as idol heavy as the 30s were. It's not as twist or theme crazy as the 30s were, but it's not back to basics either. And I think once they find the happy medium and they ride that happy medium and they really have that and then focus on the casting, we're booming. We're in another golden age of Survivor. It's coming.
Oh, I don't think we're in it just yet.
No, we're not in it, but it's coming.
It is coming. I do think the one thing I really want, it doesn't even have to be 39 days, but just more days, because
Mhm.
it's really hard for Survivor to act like it's tough and now gritty when you're there for 26 days, 3 weeks. I think 39 is, it can even be like
I think
32.
39 is a little too much. Like 30, like a month, 31 days.
31 days. Call it like,
31 days.
it doesn't have the same like ring as 39 days, but that's also just because 39 days was always the standard. But
Right.
I think they cut back a little too much and shaved off a
Mhm.
little too much, And
Just
I
yeah.
think like 31 days, it's enough to where we just get a few more days and people have to last a little longer. But it's not, because I think 39 is perfect, but that's also just me being, whatever super fan, whatever.
Right.
And so, but but like, again, it's like, other than that, what else would I change about Survivor? Maybe less idols, but even then, like,
Less weird advantages.
I do like the small trinkets though. I think sometimes they can
Yeah.
be overpowered, but I love, extra vote, safety without power.
Yeah.
I think idle nullifiers a little too much. I
Yeah.
think the super idol is too much, and I think the weird advantage that Sarah got,
The
which
inheritance
is the
advantage. That's
inheritance.
what
I
I
think
was
that
going
was
to
the
say. That
that
one's
was
a
the
little weird.
but I think having those trinkets, I think they're good. I think it
Hmm.
gives it adds enough to the game to where it adds a new layer of strategy, but not enough to where it's broken. And
Right.
so I know a lot of people, they want that back to basics where it's Survivor Borneo again. And we got like 8 seasons of Survivor just like that. Like you can go rewatch plenty of Survivor like that.
Hmm.
But I think there's, at the same time too, is like players, they play, they're robotic in how they play. I think Survivor casts game bots, and so I think having a game that can be exploited like that, where it's a back to basics, where you can just have a pagonging and just be good. I think that's a little too, again, that veers too much on the other side. But that's just
Right.
my hot take of the episode. There's gonna be more, probably, not
Right.
really.
I think two more things before we actually get into the Sox. Number one, I think the problem with at least the 30s was people were really saving all those advantages until the very, very end. Final
Yeah.
six, advantage getting and game changers. Final five for idols in most seasons. They were really trying to save those advantages. And I think I don't have an explanation or a reason for how, but incentivizing players to use those advantages earlier on, either because more people know about them because of the way those players found the advantages, like the idle cage or the beads or the words, phrases, or like having no vote to get an extra vote, or going on these journeys.
Shipwheel Island.
Having that, woo, having those incentivizing opportunities, I think is going to help avoid advantage getting at the end, which is what everybody does not want. Nobody wants advantage mania at the end of a season because
Yeah.
someone like Suri, who is going to win and is a fan favorite, is going to get clipped at the end, and it's going to be heartbreaking. And no one wants to see that.
Oh yeah, 100%, 1000%. I think the easiest way you can do it is just have the idols expire earlier. Say, hey, this expires at final 8. Um, I think one thing too is, one idea you could have, right? Let's say you have an idol early on. You say it
Mm,
expires at the merge, but never specify when the merge is, right?
mm,
That way, people, obviously now with Survivor, it's so formulaic that it's hard. Like, people know when the merge is and people know when this is. But I think when you change it up, you're able to then play around with the idea of, hey, you have this idol until the merge. We won't say when
right.
it is. It could be final 14. It could be final 10. Who knows? It's up to you. And that way, if you're on a losing tribe, then, you kind of have, you have to play that game, right? Where it's like, oh, this, that, the other thing. And you can also have a caveat where it's like, if your tribe doesn't go to tribal at all, you are just safe the first merge vote,
Right.
It also incentivizes to play hard in the challenges or throw the challenge so you have the power. Something like that. Very small change. Obviously, it involves external changes to how the show is formatted, but again, very minor, and I think that could help limit advantage getting. Bleh. Exhausted.
Absolutely. That's number one. Number two, just a little post-mortem on Danny, our de facto villain of the season. I don't know how I feel about Danny. I feel like we needed someone to step in that villain role for this season. We needed that because we have a lot of over-the-top, positive, sometimes both characters in this season. And so we kind of needed that villain. He completely kind of shot himself in the foot for me when he did his Robert De Niro impression.
Oh, come on.
Right as he got his torch snuffed. You don't understand. I have this vitriolic hate for Robert De Niro. I don't like him. I don't like any of the work he does. And so when Danny pulls out the Robert De Niro impression, I'm done. I'm just like, get him out. I don't like Robert De Niro, and now I don't like you.
Well, maybe after Survivor, we can have another podcast worth a therapy session helping you cope with your undying hatred for Robert De Niro. I will say, I saw him get a lot of flack for this online. I personally loved it because it was so cringy and it was so goofy and weird and very out of character for Danny. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, it's like you're on Survivor once. You know, I don't see CBS really pushing hard for Danny to come back. I like Danny, and I do think he played a really good villain role. He was cocky. He was brash. He did talk down to people. No one is saying he was a hero, especially not us.
No, definitely not us.
Can you imagine a season where everyone's a good guy and everyone is
like that's boring.
It is boring, you know? And so I know, you know, we don't want those like personal deep attack villains that are just nasty to be nasty. But like if you look back to everything Danny has done in this season, it's not bad.
No, it's not.
He was just arrogant, and sometimes that's okay. Sometimes you need a little OTTN in your life.
Sometimes you do.
And I think as awkward and weird as it was, I thought it was kind of cute, you know? Like, he made that promise to his friends that he would do it, and, you know, it was an impression.
That's the thing. I like the idea of as you're going out to truly be yourself. Maybe going a little bit too overboard isn't really worth it. But like Drea from 42, when she went out, she just completely heel turned. She was very calm and cool in the game. Second she gets voted out, she's like, oh no, yeah, like all that stuff, right? And that's the real Drea coming out and showing people who she is. We want more of that. Yeah. We just want really just energetic snuff. Like, you know, you're getting snuffed. Yeah, exactly. You're getting snuffed, and it sucks. You just lost the show of your dreams, but you're getting snuffed on Survivor. That's kind of cool in a way. The winning's better, but
have that,
you know,
same attitude when you lose Survivor, Jack. And I'll pass my middle.
Okay, sounds good. Well, let's get into the stacks. That's why you're here. We have this episode. We'll talk about that later. So we have the stocks for this episode, and then we're doing the stocks for the next episode. And then I thought we could do one last little kind of analytical look of the season and kind of how people rose and fell throughout the season after the last episode. And that would be the last stock watch for, you know, pretty good while. What do you think?
Sounds fantastic.
That's great. Let's get into it. Hi, Carolyn. So you know how like an what's the curve? You know the mathematical curve. I think it's exponential.
Bell curve. Exponential.
Yeah, like a bell curve. Like in a way, yeah. Jam Jam is right at this line, right? Mm-hmm. Jam Jam is right here. Carolyn has been coming up and is inching closer and closer and closer and closer to that line. but I never think she's going to pass it. And I think this is the closest she's gotten to that line. Overall, I think this is the episode Carolyn kind of needed to bolster her winning chances just even more. Playing the idol while a waste was actually, in my opinion, a pretty good move, solidifying that the Tika 3 are going to be a 3 at the final 6. And for her, that game plan works, at least what she thinks works. She really navigated it well. She's been really playing under the radar. And I think what's interesting about her now is how do we move forward? Because there are only 2 normal eliminations and then a fire-making challenge left. And so if you need to get – and so Carolyn's win condition is this. Get to the end without Jam Jam and Carson. Carolyn gets to the end without either of those 2, and she wins the game. That's my opinion, and I think that's what Carolyn needs to do. The problem with Carolyn, or 2 problems, is number 1, she doesn't see it that way. She wants to go to the end with Carson and Jam Jam, as far as we believe. Like, she wants to go to the end with those 2, and that will cost her $1 million if she decides to go to the end with those 2. That's number 1. Number 2, I always love talking about the next time on Survivor because it's a very good predictive tool to figure out what could happen in the next episode. And people are starting to see that Carolyn is someone that might need to go. Lauren said Carolyn's really come into her own. She's been very under the radar, and now she's kind of coming out into the limelight. Jam Jam and Carson strategizing about Carolyn needing to go. And so now it's weird with Carolyn because if she gets rid of Jam Jam and Carson and makes the end, she wins the game. But not only do I think she doesn't know that that's the best move for her, I also think that people are going to be coming after her potentially now.
So I will say, I think she would beat Carson in a final 3. I don't think she beats Jam Jam. I think Carolyn's social game overall is still really positive. The only bond we really see Carson make is with Kane, and I feel like Kane is kind of isolated from the rest of the jury. Like Kane, right. He's only known for his relationship with Carson, but Carolyn has Franny. Franny has Matt, and I'm not saying that, like, I see all the time where it's like, oh, well, Matt doesn't lose his agency with his vote. He can still vote outside of whoever Franny wants. But right. Franny's also in the jury house talking up Carolyn, right? We have Danny, who respects big games and probably sees Carolyn's idol play as a big game move because I don't think no one really anticipated Lauren and Heidi to vote or Lauren and Jamie to vote Heidi out of the blue, and like that was weird. And so I don't think anyone would blame Carolyn for that idol play, And
I think it was a very smart move.
And I'm sure Brandon thinks back to the feast where they kind of removed Carolyn and would respect that growth. And I don't think Carson ever had that growth. And I think growth narratively is really important to have in Survivor. Not all winners need growth. Sometimes people are just dominant. But I feel like people respect that story and would see Carolyn kind of as an underdog, not necessarily with her, strategy, but just how she's viewed at in the game. Well, I feel like everyone kind of knew Carson and where he's at and that he plays both sides and that he is social and he is kind of robotic. And for that reason, I think Carolyn stands a better chance than I think you and I realize.
I think it's an argument between Carson and Carolyn of Carson is Carolyn represents. Carson is social. Carson is a good strategist. Carson has Carson has good relationship play. Carson is good at puzzles. Carolyn represents someone who started off as very over the top, but flourished at the end. Carolyn represents someone that really kind of came into her own and was really the leader. Carolyn represents someone that was able to completely fly under the radar, like a literal caterpillar to a butterfly. So I think I see what you mean, and I honestly kind of agree with you. And I think that's actually a pretty good take. I think in a way that works. I mean, it depends. It depends on a little bit on how Carolyn presents it at the end, if she gets there. But I think that's actually a pretty good take. If the jury sees it that way, if they have that perception in their minds, Carolyn's got a good shot of winning. Not against Jam Jam, but Carolyn's got a good shot of winning.
Even then,
and maybe even with Jam Jam, she cops a few votes.
She definitely, it's not a shutout with Jam Jam.
Yeah,
and that's the big takeaway too. It's like I know we think Jam Jam has been playing or has the best shot to win, and I agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
But the line between Jam Jam and Carolyn is so thin that I'm rooting for both players, and I see either one winning the game. And the arguments we're making for why Jam Jam would win, are the exact opposite of why I think Carolyn would win. But I think they play off each other so well. Where again, with how in the Edgic we only have two contenders because there's two paths we're going down, and I don't think we'll understand and know what path we go down until the finale, which I think is perfect storytelling from Survivor. I think
it's great.
I think it's perfect. Because we know that not all 18 players are going to have a 1 in 18 shot. We know that some players are destined to play bad. Some players are destined to fall for fake idols and get buried by the edit. And so when you limit it down to just 2 or 3, potential winners, and then have a lot of side characters who are more based for their personality, their stories and whatnot, I think it makes it really compelling. And so I think while Carolyn's second, I think she still had a pretty good episode despite her reaction. I don't think the next time on Survivors have as much sway because part of it too is like it sets you up for misdirection, right? It wants you to go, oh wow, they're really going to target after Carolyn, and then next episode they're like, all right, should we take out Carolyn? Nah, it's about Jamie. Honestly, if Carson never goes, it probably would be next episode or the episode after, or the episode after that. Carson,
there's only 2 episodes left. Okay, well,
you know what I mean. There's 3 more.
To kind of cap off on Carolyn, I like the idea that having 2 contenders and 2 strong contenders going into the final episodes or episode of a season is absolutely perfect. I think 41, it was like, wait a minute, Erica's going to win, right? 42, it's like, wait a minute, Marianne's going to win, right? 43, it was like, we have no idea. I guess it's Jesse. And then Gabler wins out of nowhere.
Well, 41, too, everyone thought Ricard was going to win.
Right.
The edit for 41 was...
The edit said Ricard, but the game said Erica. Yeah. What I think is really good about this season is that we've had 2 really good contenders for a long time, and we've always, in a way, kind of known that it's going to be between these 2, and now it really is. And to see that coming to life on the screen is awesome, and I think it's going to make for a great ending.
And it's not. We're not discrediting other people's games too, because
no, absolutely not.
There were questions about whether or not Heidi could win. There were questions about Carson winning, right? Yeah. And we kind of see these roads kind of veer off as we still go down this Jam Carolyn path,
right?
And so I think in retrospect, this season is going to be really compelling, narratively, and probably one of the better seasons narratively in a long while, probably since MVGX.
Yeah,
we have a proper, especially if Carolyn wins, because she has that narrative. Jam Jam winning would just be hilarious. No matter how
it'd be great. I think it'd be funny. I think it'd be really cool.
Yeah, but I think that's about it with Carolyn.
Yeah. Moving on to Mr. Carson, Will's favorite.
Yeah.
Yeah. Carson had a good episode. I think getting saved with the idol by Carolyn. If they knew the result, if they knew that Lauren and Jamie were going to vote for Heidi or going to vote for Danny, and Carolyn didn't play the idol on Carson, I think Carson would have a pretty just middle of the road episode, a pretty mediocre episode. But the fact that Carolyn knew that it was good to play. This is more of like a Carolyn benefited Carson's episode more than Carson benefited his own episode, honestly. He was talked about as the next biggest threat, according to like Danny and Heidi. And Lauren and Jamie didn't even vote for Carson because they didn't think he was a threat. But I think Carolyn idling Carson really makes it clear that the TK3 were always the three, and Carson's goal of keeping that three together has worked. And I think by standard demarcation, that is a good episode of Survivor.
Yeah, but that's the problem, is that this is kind of similar to when Heidi found the idol and how it didn't feel complete. This should have been Carson's episode, right?
Yes.
But I feel like because we saw it from Carolyn's perspective and not Carson going, this social bond led to me being safe. It was more of a Carolyn being, I need the alliance of three to stick together. It might have been Carson's alliance. He might have been the one to hold them together. But I feel like Carolyn was the one that had the drive and said, we need to stick together. I need both Jam Jam and Carson. I want us three to the end. And for that reason, I'm not that high on Carson this episode. I'm the second biggest Carson hater. There's a guy on Twitter. I see him on my feed all the time, and he just makes fun of Carson. I feel bad. Like
that's just bad. That's just bad.
And I'm just like, dog. What did he do? He's a 20-year-old on a TV show that I'm never going to go on.
Right.
Yeah, no. It's like I can't blame him for being happy. But again, he's too perfect of a player, and I think we're starting to see the cracks. And the problem too is like he's not hiding his threat level well. People know he's a threat. They just are focusing on some of the bigger threats, and maybe that's good. That's shielding, but like we saw today where he was the backup, and it gets to a point where you can't have your shield anymore. You have to break free from them. And I think he's going to hold on to these shields for a little too long, and then they'll turn on Carson.
I like that. I think that's a good idea. In terms of Carson's whole idea, maybe keeping this whole TK3 alliance together is the reason why he ends up going home, because his quote unquote shields just had to turn on him. But Carson's played a good game. I don't think anyone could take that away from him. I think Carson played a good game, and he wanted to come on. He studied how to play Survivor using data analytic models, and he did well. Those models clearly worked. Did he win? We don't know. Probably not. But, he did well. And I think no one's going to be able to take that away from him. Next is Heidi. It's just like a weird episode for Heidi. I mean, we kind of ruled her out like a good while ago. Like basically the first two episodes we did of StockWatch, 8 and 9, we were just like, all right, Heidi doesn't pick it up, she's gone. I mean, it didn't happen, and now we're just kind of in limbo with Heidi. Like, it's weird. I don't really know how to explain Heidi. Do you want to explain Heidi? Because I don't even know how to explain Heidi.
I think Heidi's problem is that there's too many big threats for her to capitalize. She played under the radar for too long. That's Heidi's downfall. I know she said, don't underestimate me. But I think with that being her selling point and her narrative, we already have that with Carolyn. And I feel like it's very similar. And, I she doesn't have that drive that Carolyn had, to where if they're sitting next to each other, they're both going to be saying, everyone underestimated me. And Carolyn has more to show of how she overcame that. Meanwhile, Heidi just played under the radar. And I love playing under the radar. I love under the radar gameplay.
Right.
But I feel like Carolyn was able to do more while still being under the radar than Heidi, And then Jamie and Lauren also just voted. Like, it's been a while since we saw the episode. Was there a reason for Jamie and Lauren's vote, or was it just to like?
I'm not sure, but I think a really good explanation of where Heidi is going is that Heidi did not have the pull that she needed to get Lauren and Jamie. In theory, you get Danny, Heidi, Lauren, and Jamie voting Carson. No idol play because they had no idea that Carolyn had an idol. Carson goes home, and their goal of splitting up that Tika 3 is accomplished. Heidi did not have that pull. We knew Danny probably wouldn't have that pull.
Yeah.
But it was really, really lenient on Heidi, someone who bonded with Lauren at the love letter reading, and Lauren had a good connection to Jamie. They could have very easily swayed to Heidi's side if Heidi had that pull. But I think that, compared with the fact that she was so quickly misled to believe that wait, hold on. No, I'm wrong. I'm thinking about Danny. Sorry, God, Robert De Niro's living rent-free in my head. But yeah, I think Heidi was the real glue that could have made this happen, and had she had the pull to make it happen, it would have happened, but it didn't happen.
Yeah, and not just that too, but it's like there still weren't 4 unified votes, regardless of whether or not it would have done something. It's one thing for Heidi to be like, yeah, no, I tried putting together Jamie, Lauren, Danny, and I, and we tried all coming together, and an idol play, but I was able to rebuild. But Heidi can't say that anymore. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, Carolyn can say, I did not anticipate Jamie or Lauren voting Heidi, but it didn't waste the idol because Danny still went. My target still went home, and I controlled that vote, and I dictated that. Both
right.
players claim to be underestimated and, playing that radar. And that's my biggest problem with Heidi. And that's why I don't think she's winning the game, and more starting to believe that she's going to be a losing finalist.
I think that's almost, I think there's a great chance, like a really high, like in the upper quadrant, upper quadrant percentile that's going to happen.
Yeah. The only way I'd see her not being one is if it's a Jam Carolyn final 2 or final 3, and I see like Jamie being that third finalist. But it sucks because I like Heidi, and Heidi played a really solid game. It's just when the going got tough, she didn't have that pool.
She didn't capitalize, and she didn't have the materials to capitalize.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And now we have poor Jamie.
Oh no! Oh, my least favorite part of StockWatch.
I know.
Misfit. Oh, Jamie. Little subdued this week. No crazy fake idol believing, antic ridden Jamie this episode. But there was the slash for the reason last episode. You have any stock for why?
Yeah. And it sucks because I feel like Jamie is just not meant to play Survivor. Because she even had a confessional of her smiling.
What do you mean? No.
I don't want to. No,
everybody who goes on Survivor is meant to play Survivor. There's a reason why they'd be there.
Well, true. But I think there's players who are meant to play the game and be cutthroat. People like Carson. They're not there to have a personal journey. They're not there. I feel like Jamie would have fit way better in season 12. Where the game was still new. And this is coming from a Jamie. I love Jamie.
Oh my god! We're dogging her.
I'm not trying to dog her, but again, She had a confessional where she's like, I don't like lying to people. And I'm like, Jamie, this game is social politicking. All right.
Let's rephrase that. I don't think Jamie belongs in an earlier season. I think
she would do better. I don't think.
Arguably, she'd do better in an earlier season. I think with Survivor casting as a whole, you cast players that are good and players that are, but are more character driven, right?
Yeah.
Like there are like Nasir from 41, total character, not really much of a great game player. Jamie from this season, character, not much of a good game player.
And then we have the opposite with Carson, who
is such a game player and a little bit of a character that it's kind of overwhelming. Mm-hmm. But the point of it is, I think Jamie is just a character-driven player on the season, and I think that's that's okay.
No, it's great. I just don't know why the edit hates her as much as it does.
I agree with that. I don't know why.
Like, what did she do to the production where it's just like it? I hope she's getting a kick out of it though, no matter what. And
I hope she has a great snuff.
And I hope I don't know. Again, she might be a finalist.
Maybe.
I kind of want to see her on the challenge, MTV The Challenge.
That would be kind of cool.
Competition that I think Jamie would be a perfect fit for.
Absolutely. We love you, Jamie. No disrespect.
Similar story with
Lauren. It's the same kind of thing. Lauren's a little more positively edited and like a slightly stronger game player, like slightly. As far as we know, she still hasn't gotten a vote this season.
Yeah,
never been voted. That's pretty good. That takes a lot of skill. She's the only person to not get any votes this season so far. Carson got eliminated from that contention with this episode.
And you also didn't quit because Bruce and Matthew never got votes.
Right, exactly. That takes a lot of skill. And so I think Lauren's a better player. And I think we always say this every week, but Lauren should be on another season. Like, it should be a dark horse person to be on another season and do really well because we see those flashes. With her. And I think – I don't know what I think.
That's the problem. I feel like Lauren needed more confessionals earlier in the season because she's gotten them now. Like, we've seen more of Lauren in the past few episodes than we have at all pre-merge. Mm-hmm. But the problem is that, like, I feel like she is also character driven. A lot of the content we see of her is her talking about, her family and, her life. And I think the reception of her would have been a lot better had she been shown more, in the early, because I'm sure she talked about her family and how much Survivor means to her the entire time she's on the island. I'm sure everyone has talked about that. And, I think had players saw that earlier on, they would have appreciated her under the radar gameplay. Kind of similar to how a lot of fans are not excusing, that's a bad word with negative connotation, but they're kind of seeing past Heidi's gameplay and gave a lot of hope for her because she talked about being under the radar very early. Right. And I've always been a big proponent of just early on in the season you should have at least some content. You don't need a lot of content, you just need some, just to get you through the first few whatever. And I think that's what Lauren ultimately lacked for how her character panned out. But it sucks because she seems like such a fun person. And, like, again, put her on any other season that doesn't have the big characters like Jam, Carolyn, and, Franny and Matt. And she would excel. People would love her.
I think so. I think that's all we can say.
Yeah. And then Jam.
I think the thing I want to talk about, two things I want to talk about Jam. One, winning Last Gasp is awesome. It's a great challenge to win. Really emotional stakes here under that water, squirming and getting out of breath. You are drowning under that water. So winning that is absolutely a triumphant moment. But number two, can I just say that this is such an incredible Final Six.
Yep.
I personally think that it's probably the best and, in a way, most well-rounded Final Six.
Of the modern era?
Of the modern era, yeah.
Okay.
No. I was just saying all time. There are a lot better Final Sixes of all time, for sure.
But
modern era, I think absolutely. I think you have a fantastic GameBot player in Carson, really strong character players like Jam, and Carolyn, a pretty good player in Heidi, and then a lot of character in Jamie, and then like a hint of both in Lauren. And I think that's a really perfect blend. Plus, we got 4 women at the Final Six. We got a gay Puerto Rican man. Remember, like
the first or like second time that's happened since I want to say Amazon. No, not Amazon. A long time ago.
And you remember the days where it was, it was a lot of guys at the end or something like that. It was a lot of, oh God, what's a season like that?
Where it was all guys. I don't know.
I don't know. Whatever. The point of it is just a lot of really awesome, diverse people at the end.
Oh, yeah.
Where, in some of the earlier seasons, you would have had maybe one or two studs, standouts, and the rest were absolute duds.
And not just that, too. I think there's a spectrum of Survivor where on one side, it's just all character. Mm-hmm. That's where you see Jamie, and then you have Lauren, and then you have the middle of lots of character and lots of gameplay, where you have Jam and Carolyn, because they both have a lot of strategic talk, but we also know they have a lot of huge overarching storylines, especially Carolyn. And then you veer more to the right, and you have just more strategic. You have Heidi, who I think we get less personal content, but just more like game. I'm not calling her game body. And then we have the far side, where we have Carson, R.I.P. And so I think that's really cool to see, because I feel like a lot of the time Survivor really pushes these game bots, and that's why I think I'm burnt out with people like Carson, because I think all the 30s were defined by just people who are huge super fans, but they think and act like a super fan, and that's kind of like their one trait.
Right.
And Carson, at least he has that sob story of, him being a geek and a nerd, and then, prepared. Yeehaw.
Bro, I'm a geek. I'm a nerd. I'm prepared.
Jack, no offense, man, but you're like the most college frat dude guy I know. Look at you.
What are you talking about? Oh my God. All right. Let's move on. Yeah, I agree. I think there's a spectrum, and I think what we've seen with this new era seasons was that on varying sides of the middle of the spectrum of character and player, we've had our winners.
Mm-hmm.
Except for Erica. Erica's a lot more player than character.
Erica was just invisible. Like let's just call the spade a spade. Erica was super invisible the first half of the season. The only time we heard about Erica was through other people. Erica was robbed of a good edit. I will stand by that. I think she deserves to win the game. I think anyone who wins deserves to win. I'm not arguing that. And I'm not saying Erica did nothing. I'm just saying we saw her. We didn't see that much. Right? That's something I think we all can agree with. And that's not a problem on me to read between the lines. That's a problem on production for not editing the season properly.
Yeah, absolutely. But then again, you got Marianne, who's pretty near the middle, a little leaning in the character side. You got Gabler, who's leaning a little more to the player side. And now you're going to have Jam or Carolyn, who I think really almost perfectly split that middle. And I think that's going to be really, really cool to see. And I think where we're heading and what we should take a look at for future stock watches, and also for anyone trying to predict the winner, or even do fantasy outlook for Survivor or anything to predict contenders, whatever you want to do to figure out who the winner is, look for these types of players. Look for who straddles that line of character and player really well. And once you find that early, latch on to that because they're going the distance, and you got to make sure you find that player really early.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. And of course, Survivor evolves over time, and I will say that I think right now I feel like that's the whole thing with season 44 is finding that balance, right?
Mhm.
Because as much as we like to talk bad about the editing, again, I'm the biggest champion of the modern era. We have gotten a great balance between personal and gameplay. And I feel like that's something we
Yeah.
see all the time where it's like we're looking at this final 6 and there's personal content about all 6 and there's also gameplay. As much as Jamie stumbles and fumbles through the game, we see her attempts at these at this gameplay, right? Is she being successful? No. But we're still seeing that. And there's not a single player here, and there hasn't been one. Okay, that was weird. You're frozen from my end real quick. Okay, and I think that's the biggest. That's also the biggest reason why I think Jam Jam and Carolyn would win is because I feel like it kind of symbolizes just Survivor finding that balance between old school and new school.
Absolutely. Point blank. We're getting into the stuck ratings. You're not going to agree on one of these. I know. Let's begin.
Yeah.
Jam Jam, plus. I think at this rate, if you don't have a lot or you even have a lot, you just keep buying more. Don't sell until the end. That's my thought.
Yeah.
Carolyn's a very timid plus. Like I said, she's riding up on that bell curve, and once she's never going to hit that line unless Jam Jam goes, and then she's going to go past the line. So we'll see. So that's why I put a timid plus there. Carson's a plus for me because it, was a good episode for Carson. And I think you might disagree with the plus.
I think it's a plus. I don't think it's a plus.
Okay. That's reasonable. I could take a plus.
Yeah, it's a good episode. I don't think it's a great episode.
I like that. Okay. Heidi's a minus. I think this episode, she really needed to hit it, and she did not. Lauren's also a minus. Don't really get the vote for Heidi either. I really thought she should have either stuck with Danny or Carson, along with Jamie. And then with Jamie, why do you have it?
I can't wait for Jamie to explain, like, what if Jamie wins Survivor 44?
Oh my God. Okay. So we've talked about these new era Survivor winners being character players or people who straddle that line. And then, Gabriel last season was really shocking. We all thought it was going to be Jesse, and then we thought, oh, okay, it's going to be Cassidy, and then it was Gabriel. But, the signs were kind of there. There are no signs for Jamie. If Jamie wins this season, the editor, I'm gonna take a wild swing and say that the editors who edited this season were interns that were for free, because there's no way that Jamie went. No, I refuse to believe it.
Now, hear me out. Jamie comes back for season 50, The Legends at War, and wins the game.
Okay.
Rank among and plays the most dominant game.
If she plays a dominant game, then okay. Then she's a good winner. Whatever. But right now we're grounded in reality. We're grounded in season 44. Jamie, we love you. You're not winning, and if you do, oh my God, I don't even know what I'm gonna say. What's the point of the show? I will put this show on the line. I'll do it. I'll put the show on the line. If Jamie wins, this show is defunct. And we are wrong. And we are sorry. We really are. So, yeah. And anywho, let's move on to the Edgic. Last little overview. Carolyn with the standout. Danny, CP negative overall. You could make an argument that because he had a few under the radar episodes and sometimes he was over the top and middle of the road, you could do middle of the road negative. But I'm really harping on the fact that aside from Josh, like Danny was the villain of the season, and Josh kind of came out like the last few episodes, and so he wasn't like
villain.
Yeah, he wasn't really like Josh isn't really the greatest villain of the season. Danny, I think, is the villain of the season, and that's why I give him the CP negative. That's commonly reserved for the villain of the season, and so I think Danny deserves that distinction. Other than Carolyn and Danny, though, not a lot of focus on the other people on like on a first proper look. It's just a lot of threes, a lot of twos, a lot of middle of the roads under the radar for Lauren. Like it's just
and that's why I'm not calling it the best episode of the season. I think it's a great episode, but I think when you look back at the season, I think the Danny boot is just the precursor to something better that's going to happen. And again, I feel like we've been building up, and I feel like the last the Franny boot was like one of the biggest moments to happen of the merge, and I think the Danny boot was just kind of the follow up of that, and less of a defining factor or defining moment of Survivor 44.
Right.
It could be, but I feel like we're coming into a really, really strong finale.
Yep.
And the next episode too could be a filler episode, where we see Lauren get the boot, or Jamie getting put out of her misery. But I think we're going into a really, really strong end game.
I agree. The one thing I want to point out that I'm really excited for, you see that little thing near the bottom left, but not like totally near the bottom left? Like a little bit out from the bottom left of the image.
Yeah.
The little two medium green cells at the bottom. I'm excited for Bruce, man. Good for Bruce that he gets to come back and play Survivor.
Oh yeah.
Again. Come on, you had to get me there. I'm season. If you don't know, Redmond Inside Survivor has been leaking the season 45 cast, and with that is obviously Bruce, because he was revealed to be coming back 100%. So I'm really just excited to see Bruce, and I'm really excited to see how Bruce does, and if he really is a good player or if he's just out early.
Calling it now, he probably goes like pre-merge.
You think? I don't think so. I think he goes mid-jury. That's what I think.
I can see that. I think he's going to be like the Russell Swan, where like everyone's so excited for him to come back, and like he does really well. I feel like he might be on like the next Matt Singh, where he is just on a losing tribe that keeps losing, and they're like, all right, we got to sack Bruce here.
Oh, that would suck. Oh, that would be hard. I think mid-jury. I think that Russell Swan type of respect carries into the merge, and then people are like, all right, Bruce isn't really helping out. Let's just get rid of Bruce. Yeah. And I think he goes at like 10th or 9th, maybe 8th.
I can see that. It's weird. It's hard to say because, this is just based off of like 30 seconds or 55 seconds, I think was his total runtime.
It was bad. It was very low.
I don't see him having the best chance, but
we'll see. We have no idea. We really have no idea. We have no indication.
Gabler can win, so can anyone.
If Mike Gabler can win Survivor in a 7-1 vote with 0 votes casted against him the entire season, then Bruce can win.
After almost quitting.
After almost quitting and playing his shot in the dark the first tribal, anyone can win, and Bruce can be one of those people.
Yeah.
Well, that is StockWatch episode 11. Do you have anything you want to say about this episode?
I just want to say that my parents work for Survivor, and Jamie's actually the winner. The producers were mad at the response from the edit that Gabler and Erica got, and so now they're doubling down as a big middle finger to the fans.
Your parents need to be fired. Your parents need to be fired. That needs to be done. I'm so sorry. I hope you find good shelter and good job security with your parents after this. But yeah, this is going to be a good season overall. I don't think top 10, but I certainly think top 20.
I could say it's top 15. Recency bias.
Recency bias for sure, but I definitely think it's top 20 for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Or now we have to say top 22 because,
True. Now there are 40. There are going to be 44 seasons of Survivor, and it's going to be 45. You know what I'm doing this summer, Will? You know what I'm excited to do this summer? I'm excited to audition for Survivor. Ooh. I did it once when I was 18 just to do it. My audition video was filmed only by me. It was filmed in my neighborhood. And some of my skills included doing flow puzzles on my phone and throwing a football. So it was pretty good.
I don't know why you didn't get casted on the spot, dog. Just send that video again.
I don't know. I should have been cast. But yeah, I feel ready. I feel ready to go on. I feel ready to do that experience in my life. And so I'm gonna apply. I'm gonna send out my application for Survivor. What is it, 47 or 48 now? And we'll see how it goes.
So I plan on applying as well. And I had this idea because my band Saving Bruce were playing a show July 14th. Mm-hmm. If you're in the Baltimore area, come down, support us, support your local scene.
Definitely go.
And part of the audition, or the video, I'm thinking about just making a big announcement of like, oh yeah, by the way, guys, I'm applying to Survivor. Go wild and start screaming, and that could be like, see, I'm popular. Like, these people love me.
Wow,
cast me.
Great social player.
I'm one of the best.
Absolutely.
Like, if I can get these people to come to a show, then I can get people to vote and do whatever I want. Social game.
This has been Jack and Will with the stocks. Will, you got anything else for us?
I just want to give an open letter to Jeff Probst that I'm ready to play Survivor at any point. I know he's a big fan of Survivor Now and the Survivor Now family. And Jeff Probst, too, if you want to hop on the episode, pop on a show, you have an open invitation. Just respond to my Twitter DM.
You said Jeff Probst to Twitter DM.
Or Instagram. But yes, I did.
This has been Jack and Will with the stocks. We want to thank you all so much. We will see you next episode for our penultimate episode of the season. Adios.